Welcome to Hillbilly Herpetology. I'm Webb. This is Buck. I'm smiling, but the topic of today's video is not a smiling matter. Today, we're going to be talking about dyskinetic syndrome, or DKS in tarantulas, some of the ways that we're thought that it's caused, and some of what we can do after we confirm that they have it to maybe possibly keep them around. Or maybe not. Maybe euthanization is the best option for them because there is no known cure. Most of them die shortly after they get it. And I've only found a few cases where people have been able to feed them, get them to molt. And from what I have seen, it is not something they grow out of. But these people, like I will be doing, will be trying to see what happens later on. Do they eventually molt out of this? Is this something that they can get better from? And if so, what are we doing to do that? So I figured I'd document it here on this. So what we have is a Panthopedius species McCullough. And this is the purple bloom tarantula. And I was doing a little trade the other day, and the guy knew that I was really into tarantulas. And he says, "Hey, Webb," he goes, "do you want a purple balloon tarantula? It has DKS, and I've been working on it for about 8 months now. It's molted a couple of times in my care, which obviously means she's eating." He said, I can't really do anything for her. And I said, well, I can definitely try. I know quite a bit more about tarantulas than the kid did. So what we have here is a Panthopedius species McCullough with DKS. Now, as the cameraman here is getting some shots of this, I'll talk a little bit about what it does. So, that's great that we're seeing that movement. DKS makes a tarantula move in a way that would not be normal, almost as if it does not have full control of its faculties. So, I'm going to go up, I'm just going to tap this tarantula here, and I'm going to try to get it, okay. I know that was a fast burst, Eric. Hopefully, was you able to catch that?
Half of it.
Okay, so let's try again the other way. I'm not doing this to be mean, guys, because I don't feel like this is right in a way, but at the same time, I want this information out there. So, this thing is moving kind of jerky. It kind of will just sit there and kind of hop sometimes when it's trying to move. Now, if this tarantula did not have DKS, this thing could have been across the table in no time doing whatever it wanted to do. But because it has DKS, it is unable to move in a way that it should be moving like a normal tarantula. It's almost as if it's a central nervous disease that makes it to where the brain cannot get its message across to the limbs in a proper manner. Almost like either it's delayed in sending the messages out, or somewhere it gets jumbled up and you see it in the tarantula's movements. Now, the hardest part about having a tarantula like this is you have to try to figure out how to feed it. Its body's not working in the way that it should be. So how do you feed something like this? Well, the answer is you pre-kill the prey, you leave it in front of it, or you can try to put it directly under the fangs, and sometimes they'll be able to get the fangs to work good enough to grab it that way. But it's not easy, and there are ethical questions of when you get a tarantula that has DKS, do you euthanize it? Do you squash it? I mean, because is it ethical to let this animal live its life like this? Having a hard time doing anything that it's doing, having a hard time eating. I say, in the name of science, to try to figure out if there's a way to get it to be better, or to figure out if they can be cured from it. Yeah, it's important to keep them around if you can, because like I said, a lot of times they just die outright. So this thing is apparently molted twice in this guy's care in 8 months. We're going to try to keep it going. Now, causes for DKS are going to be chemicals in your house. Are you smoking around this tarantula? In this case, I was specifically told that the original owner of this tarantula had it right beside their bed, and that they were regularly smoking cigarettes and marijuana. And I feel like that's probably what caused this. That also, you figure if they're smoking heavily in their room, Maybe they're spraying air freshener. These are also thought to be causes of it. Heavy bleach in the air. Bleach has caused a lot of tarantulas to go into DKS. Now, the problem with me saying all of this is there's no hard scientific proof. There's no studies. Nobody's taking their tarantulas and putting them in a room full of bleach fumes and being like, oh, yep, it got DKS. But anytime somebody has a tarantula that gets DKS, they can usually point and be like, okay, I used bleach in the room last week, or okay, I got this soil from the store, and turns out the soil has fertilizer or pesticides in it. You can usually find a reason for this, but it's also thought that there could be some bacterial causes from it too, if you have a fossorial species that stays underground in the wet all the time. But pretty much that's the problem with DKS, is there's so much unknown about it. I personally believe that it's a complex of disorders that all display central nervous conditions. So I don't think it's any one thing. I think it's multiple different things that are causing this. But the other bad thing is unfortunately we don't have a tarantula doctor to go to when something like this happens. So you're pretty much on your own just doing research and figuring out how it goes. So big don'ts. Do not have any kind of chemicals around your tarantulas. If you are going to be using chemicals, keep them in a contained area where they can't get to the chemicals, or the chemicals can't get to them, I should say. A tarantula's lungs are located underneath of the abdomen. And so back here on the bottom is where its lungs are. They're called book lungs. And you wouldn't be able to see them unless it was up against the glass, but that's where they breathe. And so any kind of fragrance in the air is going to go right over their book lungs, and it's going to make it to where they're breathing this. And that's thought to be the cause of a lot of the problem, is breathing the chemicals in. Don't use chemicals to clean their enclosures. Don't use dirt with fertilizer. Another big problem that people have seen, if you have a dog and you are using topical flea medication and you pet your dog and then you don't wash your hands and you feed your tarantula a roach, you are in essence possibly getting contamination on your hands and then onto the tarantula. But let's say it's not enough to kill said tarantula. Well, that's thought to be one of the causes of DKS. So those are all ways you can watch for it to happen, ways to prevent it from happening. And I personally, this is the first tarantula that I've worked with DKS. I've not had it happen in my collection before. But because of the fact that we don't know if this is contagious or anything, I'm not putting it right up against another tarantula for them to have fun time or anything like that. Kind of keeping it in an area where it's away from other things, although I don't think that there's any contagiousness to it at all. I really don't. It's not like I've ever heard of it spreading through a whole collection unless there was painting going on or something like that. So when you're cleaning the cages, just use vinegar and water. Vinegar and water is fine. You could also alternatively use dishwashing detergent, but just a very light amount. Make sure that it's rinsed very heavily afterwards. But honestly, most of the time when I'm cleaning my enclosures, I just use good old hot water, elbow grease, and sometimes I'll use some vinegar. But most of the time in the spider enclosures, I don't even need vinegar. It's just hot water and a rag, and it works. So DKS, an overview. DKS, dyskinetic syndrome. It makes your tarantula's movements and mind not match up to where it has jerky movements. Some cases are worse than others. This, I would say, is not a severe case at all, because it can still move around, it can still eat, it can still molt, it's still alive. Most cases are not like this, so I would say this is a very light case of DKS, which gives me hope that maybe we can do something for this tarantula. If you have any experience with DKS, please comment down below. Let me know what your experience was, so that way I can glean some information off of that, because like I said, this is my first time going through this. And if you have any questions or concerns, comment down below and hit the subscribe button. It really helps out the algorithms, guys. It really helps us out here at Hillbilly Herpetology. We are produced, of course, as always, by our good cameraman, Eric. Thank you, Trevor Howe, for the theme music. And yeah, have a great day. We'll see you here next time at Hillbilly Herpetology.